Hello, everyone. This is Zan, observing the diplomats of the Geneva Convention as the Cafecito caster. We're going to take a moment on this turn to review the messages that have been sent to us, and then take a quick look at the various prophet names, and of course, shame those who haven't renamed their prophets. After that, this turn, we're probably going to move on to the first turn of expansion for most of the nations. Let's get started. Our first message is from Ulm. So Ulm here is mostly telling us his starting research plan, which I feel is probably a traditional Ulmish plan of Earthmeld, Strength Giants, Legions of Steel, the various Conjuration 3 powers. He's also mentioning that he took a dormant Pretender Titan, and that's actually pretty cool. The pats are down here. They're Air 1, Fire 1, which it's kind of low, but Earth 5 and Astral 5 is actually pretty cool. It's going to allow him to do a lot of things. I know he's mentioning here that Astral 4 is bad because of Magic Duel, which long explanation short, it just allows weaker astral mages to kill a greater astral mage, especially if he's your only one. But I think the Pats are going to actually let him do a lot of really cool things. And, it's me. I'm always a fan of Dormant Titans. Let's move on to Marverni. We've got two messages from them. And the first message is just asking how Agrippa is. The second message is now from the second Hydra head of Marverni, and they're giving us most of their general plan, which is to give some armor to their badass Gorgon and then try to take some key checkpoints in the center of the map. Next we have Kailasa, who's explaining their bless is the awesome, more like fearsome, fear and barkskin bless, combined with the natural awe of the Kailasa sacreds. Sounds actually pretty cool and synergistic. He's worried a little bit about Skelly spam and foul vapors, which, if you guys picked up on my Abyssia game, my very first uploads onto the channel, that was actually what I ran into. I took this all bless and I was like, wow, this is going to be great. I have berserkers. And I ended up fighting Asphodel, who foul vapored the crap out of me and sent a bunch of skeletons, negating half of what made my bless great. Their second message is more about trying to thug with Guyak commanders, which, I mean, it's possible, but I feel like the cap-only sacreds of Kailasa are much better for that job. Lanka now. And Lanka here is giving us more of an overall game plan, start, finish, and end, and they're blessed to highlight, which is Regen, Regeneration, Blood Bond, and Undying 8, which is a lot. And Lanka can actually field a hell of a lot of sacreds. He's even mentioning here he's looking at Feast of Flesh to make Pragasas, which my Lanka's a bit rusty. I don't think I've ever played them, but I'm pretty sure that one just dropped a crap ton of sacreds for you. All the Lankan sacreds traditionally hit pretty damn hard, and now you're making them very, very tanky with the regeneration and the blood bond. So that's actually pretty awesome. I'm excited to see Lanka in action. Yomi here. Now he's just mostly saying they've only played Yomi once, but hey, that's more than a lot of people in most people's games. I don't often play nations I've played before, so he's ahead of the curve here. Anyways, they're taking an awake researcher that looks like it's going to grant regeneration to their Dionis and get them to Alteration 2 to help them expand easier. Pretty, typical Yomi plays, but once more, I don't think I've played Yomi, so I hope to see some awesome action from the Giant Goblins. Now let's now see what Ulm has. We have more axes, the Warrior Chief. It doesn't even taste like Pigus, the Marverni Chieftain. Took a bite out of that Gorgon. Touch the Sky, the Sistar. Bob, the Furbolg Champion, a very poetic name for a poetic race. And they remembered to rename the Prophet of Helheim. Just a Tree, the Jotun Scout. Oh God, my eyes, the poor Bandor commander forced to witness these half-naked demi-giants who are both awesome and fearsome at the same time. Agraja, the Bandor commander of Lanka, looks to have failed our renaming test. Camlin, the Oni Shugo, maybe has failed. I'm not sure. Reach advantage of the Locos, which is a fair statement for Mekone in general. They're giant hoplites. Jabril, the Ubar commander, looks like another renaming failure. And then somehow Omniscience gets a Ring of the Warrior. Hopefully a good sign for the turn to come. Moving over now to turn 2, we have a bunch of messages from those who actually didn't send one on turn 1. I'm very appreciative for them splitting this up. So for Marverni, they're just saying they ended the turn, nothing fancy. But Caelum here is actually giving us the majority of their game plan, and I actually think this is really interesting because they're taking a scales build, but not a traditional one. They're taking Death 1 instead of Growth, as well as taking Luck 3, and they're hoping that this kind of skews events toward more Death gems or other gems. And it's a very tricky scenario that can potentially backfire, but I've never done it myself. But I do know that for sure that there is a connection between luck, misfortune, and your actual population growth beyond the scope of the death and growth scales. Outside of that, they're mainly saying they're taking Order 3, Production 3, so they're going to have a huge amount of troops available to them. They're going to try to rush Conjuration 5, which is traditional Caelum play, to get large air elementals, which trample away most enemies. And it's just overall very interesting. They did take Spirit Sight and Magic Weapons just in case there's an Ubar problem. And there tends to be, so we'll see how that ends up working for them. So Tirnanog is telling me something similar, where they're taking a more traditional approach to the nation and have an Imprisoned Pretender, Olio, the Rainbow Mage. Hinnom is pretty excited to fortify their little box, and that's always fun. You know, I've never played on the Mountain Arena map, so I don't know, is the meta to fortify your inner circle and then push out, or kind of rush out and do a land grab in the center? I don't know. And Ubar, of course, has realized that his cap circle has living statues. That's pretty sad. But we now have battles, and since this is the first wave of battles for all the nations, we're actually going to dip right into probably all of them and just see how the first expansion goes. It's always the toughest. Let's go ahead and see Marverni's, Turnanog's expansion. So they've got some of their Tuatha warriors. Let's see if they get blessed, and we can write down their bless. And they indeed have a pretty typical builds. Shock res, poison res, cold res. There's no fire res, but they elect to take attack skill, a lot of defense skill, strength, and some hit points. Dark Vision 50 actually puts the Tuatha warriors to about 100 Dark Vision instead of 50 like most people, because they start with some. Overall, this is scary as hell. They don't have fire resistance, but I mean, you could work with that. I'm wondering if they took cold scales instead of heat scales, so that they can cast things like Grip of Winter, since their sacreds are already cold resistant, but they're not heat resistant. So it's a pretty interesting one. Tools are very great. Sacreds, they start with very good equipment that helps them actually punch a lot above their weight for their cost. So we do have some getting to the rear, but the front line gets mulched, and that's a pretty easy win for Tirnanog. I'd say that was fairly standard. They actually did lose a Sacred and some warriors, but it is a heavy cav province, and it's, you know, overall brave of them for running into heavy cav on turn 1. Imagine that. And we see that they elected to have some mammoths. They have their archers forward, and they want their units to walk instead of attacking rear, probably to support the mammoths. Take a minute to look at their bless, and I'll be writing these down and adding them to the comments. So we see Caelum took a magic weapon, Undying 8, and Spirit Sight, as they said. Not the most powerful blesses, but having a very strong Astral Death Pretender, if it's in a mobile or something. I mean, even if it isn't, but especially as in a mobile, could actually be pretty damn strong. Let's see actually what happens here. So the archers are on Fire Archer, which is... I like doing that, especially because I'd rather them not shoot at these armored and shielded infantry, and I'd rather they shoot at unarmored archers. Who would have thought? This is, despite being non-conventional, this is a pretty good expansion. Usually you'd have your flying lancers on attack rear or attack archers. But yeah, this was clean. This was clean. Did they lose? They lost 2 archers. Very good. Very good. Very good. Let's go see what Niefelheim's up to. So Niefelheim, I think this is their scout. Yep, just the Tree of the Prophet with a Shock Resistance 15 Bless. I'm sure that there's going to be more to this later, but for now, I don't see very many Sacreds. I think these... Oh, this is just another Jotun Scout. And another Jotun Scout. How interesting. I wonder what he's trying to do with all these Jotun Scouts. Well, he's got his infantry split up. They're moving up forward. I don't know why these guys are so far. Oh, because they're holding fire. Hmm. I don't know if that split is going to work out with him, because that is a lot of cavalry. And these guys don't have... These Bondi are essentially militia. They don't have a lot of attack skill. So it's going to be hard for them to actually hit this cavalry. I'm not sure I like this right now for Niefelheim. Especially all these scouts that could actually be up front. These spears have pretty good attack skill, pretty good repel chances. Oh, it looks like I missed his line just getting killed. Oh no. Oh, and there's a route. Well, I guess this is going to be the first... Oh, I spoke too soon. They're routing now too. Oh, this is bloody. This is not what you want to see in your first expansion. It's down to the commanders, and it looks like the commanders managed to rout the Neefel Giants. That is very unfortunate for Niefelheim. So it looks like they lost about half their forces. It should be easy to take this province again, but that is definitely going to be a loss of tempo. We're going to move now and see what Mekone's up to. And does their prophet even have a bless? Is this even their prophet? It is, and that is a bless right there. Wow, that's actually a really cool mage bless for them. I really like this approach. The Mekonian mages, they once weren't recruit anywhere, the Archons I believe they're called, but now that they are, farcaster and unaging on them is pretty damn good. So that can be a very spooky bless later. We see that he's likely recruited all these peltas. They're so damn cheap and so damn good. This should be very, very easy. It should be just a bunch of these peltists. Oh, these poor militia. Yeah. That's the thing. It's each of these guys is going to have that spear to throw, and then they each have 13 defense. They're dirt cheap. They hit just as hard as most other units. Like, okay, this is some wimpy slave, right? But he's got 13 defense and hits for 13. This is, quote unquote, like a trained infantryman, a heavy infantry, even, with a little less defense, but he hits just as hard. So, yeah, these peltists are just great in mass. See, they falter a little bit against shields, but who cares when you have that many javelin tosses and that many attacks per square and just the surround. I'm a huge fan of, at least very early in the game, making a hell of a lot of peltists. Helot amount of peltists. Tried, failed. We're going to check out Ulm now. And this madman has gone for the Elephant Province as his very first expansion. I mean, that's very impressive. What's his plus here? Well, not cold resistance for sure. Is just magic weapons. To be fair, he did mention fire and shock resistance is going to come later, but I don't know if the 9 provinces he was given in his cap circle are enough to fit the weight of his massive axes. Wow, that is also so fortunate. The Word of Stone on the elephant. I guess it has no magic resistance, so... Yeah, this makes sense. Okay, that's something I hadn't considered. If I have an Earth Smite, taking out the elephants might be easy. You can just knock one out completely. The rest go in and get mulched by these steel warriors. Unfortunately, some of the archers are routing, but the rest of the infantry come in and just clean up. Okay, so let's see. Oh, they're not routing. They're on fire and keep distance. Holy cow, what is this Ulm expansion? Wow. I'm impressed, man. Ulm, whoever you are, I hope you're watching this, and I hope you're going to write some comments. This was super impressive. You're super ballsy for going after war elephants for your first expansion. You lost your archers, but that's okay. That's so okay. This was badass. Let's look now at Ubar. So they've gone north. They've brought some gin. I think I can check their bless out. Did they profit their dude? Of course they did. We have magic resistance and magic leadership, which is going to allow them to actually bring the gin along in their first army. I wonder if that means he just took an S4 god and a researcher, sage, or something, and just went full scales. I seen Kirby1, who is a pretty famous-ish old Ubar player, and his preferred build doesn't even have that. It's just pure full scales. It's a bit greedy, he's mentioned, but it's pretty much the best Ubar he's played, I think. It's a pretty easy expansion because these Jin are just monsters in expansion due to Unseen. It gives a -10 attack penalty to melee attackers until they get hit. So ideally you want to hit them with a ranged attack or salt or something, because fighting these in melee, even though they don't have a shield, is just, it's nonsense. So you really just want to hit them with a ranged attack and then hope that you get past Ethereal. Let's move down now to, this time I believe this is actually Marverni. I wonder what bless he took. Poison resistance 5 and larger, which I think is the same bless that I took on a Gorgon when I used one as Arcacephaly. So he actually elected to recruit Boar Warriors in his first expansion. I've only played Marverni in a Blitz, but I really liked using those Epony Knights. They were actually fantastic at beating up the Independents. They're a little bit separate from his main line, but all these guys are going to toss Javelin, so maybe they meet together and... Yeah, that's a pretty good way of cleaning up cavalry. Now the Boar Warriors are going to come in and absorb the hits. The rest of the infantry are going to come clean up. Very nice. It wasn't too hard of a province regardless, but looked relatively clean. I'm sure we'll see the Gorgon coming out soon. Yeah, look at that. Lost one dude, took a province. Hell yeah, good job, Marverni. We'll see Helheim now at the Titan's Breath peaks. I'm sure he's got some Hell Herdings. Excited to see their typical Rainbow Bless. Oh boy. Magic weapons, shock resistance, poison resistance, fire resistance. Okay, resist everything. Defense skill 2, Undying 2, Strength 2, BloodSurge. That's not a lot of strength, honestly. Although they resist all magic and they've got some pretty decent defense, I feel like a lot of elf players do this, and they open themselves up to dying to a thug very easily. I do like Poison Resistance 15 over 10 because one of the things I've done against Poison Resistance 10 Hell Herdings is have like a Snake Bladder stick. It will break through 10 Poison Resistance. So this is pretty safe. They get Spirit Sight naturally, I think, so they don't need that in their Bless, but... I mean, this is it's, as he says, it's the boring option. It's the standard elf build. They're going to do fantastic at beating up independents and unprepared players. I do worry that they won't have enough oomph when they run into a thug, but that's just how it be sometimes. Very clean expansion, as expected. Hell yeah. Okay, wrapping up, we've got Yomi. They're moving in with... I like these Kaoni for expansion too, especially if you have your scales over the province to get some turmoil. Just because they have this form that hits pretty hard for a size 1, but then they also have an ethereal form, and traditionally, indies suck at ethereal. Let's see their bless. Oh, it looks like there is a little bit more than regeneration. And we see it's a bit of a doozy. It's got good resistances across the board. It doesn't have poison resistance, but I think Oni tend to be poison resistant naturally. Yes. And then the regeneration is going to offset a lot of possible poison damage. The reinvigoration is actually kind of key. The goblins tend to have some bad encumbrance issues, especially early on when you can't replace their armor. And then regeneration and HeatAura is pretty good. MountainSurvival is kind of leftover, but it is a mountain map, so I'm certain that they're going to find some use in it. Okay, the wolves are going to run forward and die as they do. Looks like the Wakizashi bandits are just on fire closest. And the Kaoni are going to just wreck these infantry pretty much. Looks like HeatAura lit an archer on fire. Honestly, I'll say a bless like this, they might be able to get some of these Shugo to expand on their own. The Dione can for sure do it once he starts getting them. He can't get them for a while at the beginning. Pretty good expansion again, I don't think. Oh, yeah, he did lose a Kaoni, which is no biggie. Oh, now I'm really excited. This is the Lanka bless. And he's elected to use Kalamuka as his initial recruits instead of any of the traditional demons. These are the Recruit Anywhere Sacreds, and as promised, we do have Undying 8, Regeneration, and Blood Bond. I wonder if he's doing it because he has such a tanky defensive bless, and these are the only ones that have a full set of armor. I think the other traditional recruits from Lanka's capital don't even have... The most armored one doesn't have a helmet. So maybe he's trying to avoid just lucky hits translating over. Because it's cavalry, he did this pretty clean that he's got these Marcata eating the cavalry charge. And that's almost always what you're going to want to do. Because the Marcata actually have really high defense. This one that uses the short bow or the fists, I think has more. I prefer the rock throwing Marcata. They have an additional point of defense, and they tend to walk closer to the enemy, so there's a greater chance of them actually participating in combat. These tend to be in the back, so the fact he got this to happen together is good. And now that all the lances have been wasted on these, regular monkeys, oh, and the heavy cavalry retreats, there's so many of them retreating too. Wow, this was absurdly clean. Yeah, this was super clean for a turn 1 expansion with literally just 3 sacreds. Good job, dude. We're going to see Ubar expanding twice. This is probably a scout ping. Yeah, this is a scout ping. He just wants to see, I guess, how much cavalry is actually here and if he can get away with an attack rear command. And I think he can. Should be easy. Okay, we see Hinnom coming out. Let's see if he's got fun wagons. He does not, but he does have Avite light infantry, and Avite infantry are super quality troops. You don't get many, but they're very, very good. Let's see if I can select his commander. And his commander is not the Prophet, so I have no idea what his bless is. But pretty clean expansion. As before, Avites are super quality infantry. I love them. As close to a, quote-unquote perfect infantry unit as you can get. Obviously, there's opinions on whether you want size 2 versus you want giants, all that fun stuff. But Avites rock. And our final battle to witness is going to be Kailasa, who, rather than build some sacred, has gotten a bunch of Bandar warriors with bucklers to come out. But you see, here's what's going to look like the difference between his expansion and Lanka's, is the Marcata, because they have longer range than the other guys, they're going to actually filter in the back of the units. And you really want these guys in the front, because this 7 damage short bow doesn't really do the Kailasa player any favors. It doesn't really damage the majority of independent units, unfortunately. Not in the ways that matter. But all of your unarmored units who just have bucklers are in for a lot of trouble with the friendly fire issues. Not to mention that, again, since they are unarmored, like these guys have 11 defense and no armor, they're going to take a lot of damage. So this is already worrying me. Can we see his bless? Well, right now it looks like he went dormant, so for now we just have magic weapons and BloodSurge. That might be why he's electing to expand with just infantry. Okay, so far this looks fine. Those javelins are pretty deadly. Bucklers are not good at stopping arrows. Okay, good so far. Speed these light infantry. There's the friendly fire. Okay, the Atavi are gone. The Bandar are getting torn apart by themselves, and this isn't looking good. Can we rout the light infantry? Nope, we retreat. Dang, Kailasa. Yeah, this was really unfortunate. This is one of the reasons I wish that the starting Marcata were not the short bow ones. I wish they were the rock throwers. It's a very tiny difference, and I know that I like digging into these minuscule changes, but I think it'll make expansion a lot easier just by having the Marcata run up front and get hit by things. That's just a personal opinion, so pour one out flyer, Kailasa, as Lucid likes to say, but better luck next time. So that's just the cap circle for everyone, so it's not really worth looking at where they went. Maybe next turn we'll start to do that. But for now, I think I'm happy to end the turn here, and see you guys next time.